Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and we've got a special one today, so we're not going to waste your time. We've got a great guest I can't wait to introduce, but before we get to him, welcome back, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I think I'm missing a crayon. Were you over here last night, maybe?
Powder blue?
I'm doing great. As usual, when we have a guest, there's no reason for me to dilly-dally here. I need to go ahead and throw it back to you so we can get going. The man, the myth, the world's smartest marsupial. It is Miles.
Guys, today's special. We have with us the current showrunner, longest running showrunner, one of according to his partner in crime, Mike Reese, one of the approximately 13 people who are responsible for The Simpsons happening. Welcome back to the show, Al Jean. How are you, Al?
I'm very glad to be here.
We're so excited to have you, man. We've been waiting for this one for several months now. Last time we spoke, you were launching the podcast series Comic-Con Begins, and that was an awesome experience having you to talk about that. But today we're going to talk about something that's also been a big part of your life, The Simpsons. I think that's a fair assessment of the show at this point for you.
It's been more than half my life. It's amazing. It's just started as a summer job, is professional. It's who I am and who I always will be.
I'm at this point, I think it's very fair to say, I mean, I know there's a lot of people responsible for creating the show, but in terms of longevity, you are the man. I mean, you are the Simpsons, Al. Do you ever take a step back and view that? How do you feel being where you are now, knowing the journey of how it took to get there?
Well, there's no one person that's the Simpsons. That's the genius of it. And I definitely didn't create it. That was Jim Brooks, Matt Groening, and Sam Simon. And, Matt started it, and then the two of them really made it what it was, along with Matt. But I think I helped it stay on the air as long as it has. It's it'll be on my tombstone. And I've been there for 32 years. And when Mike and I took over the show in season 3, I was terrified. I just said, I don't want to be the one who ends the show. And so far, I've avoided that fate. But there's, just dozens of brilliant writers, other showrunners, and of course the directors and the cast. I mean, every aspect of the show is just so perfect, and people work so hard and care about it so much. It sounds like a cliche, but it really is why we're still on.
That's well, first of all, I have to say that you are far more humble than Mike is. If you haven't told me. But no, legitimately, that's something that I hear a lot from everybody that we talked to from The Simpsons. When we spoke to Carolyn Omine, she had very similar things to say, talking about how much of it's such a great team environment. And I listen to the commentaries on the DVDs each episode that we watch, and you can even hear it with you guys in the audio room recording the commentaries for these, how much of a cohesive unit you guys are. Because even the jokes you're making for the commentary, you can tell that you have a natural banter with each other that just flows so nicely. So it's nice to hear that there's a lot of love still being used to make the show.
No, it's really put to the test because we haven't seen each other physically in 2 years. We haven't been in the same room, but the show has gone on and thrived. And it's everybody's talented, and we get along really well. Whenever there's somebody who we think, isn't trying to do, what's in the best interest of the team, that person usually doesn't stick around. I mean, it's a really, really supportive atmosphere.
So you, on this commentary for this episode and in other interviews, you've talked about being a father. It almost feels like you've kind of got a parental role, it seems, for The Simpsons itself in that case as well. Would you consider, do you ever think of the show as your baby? I mean, is that a practical thing that you use do you use that term?
I think I'm a favored uncle.
Okay.
I didn't create it, and I came to it thinking, wow, this is really wonderful. And I've certainly added a lot to it and worked a ton on it. But what I do have the experience of that most people don't is seeing The Simpsons from the inside, as it was a sensation when it started, and now it's ubiquitous and it's been on so long. It's a thing that like everybody knows about, but I was on the inside of it, and I'm very lucky.
And insanely, it's phenomenal. Like The Simpsons is gone beyond the scope of just a TV show. I mean, it's a theme park attraction in multiple countries. There's actually something that came up during this episode we'll talk about later with something that you guys mentioned about like an Australian theme park company you talked about in the commentary. We'll get to it. I want to talk a little bit about you as the showrunner on the show, because you've also got something else that's unique to all the other showrunners in that you and Mike did it back in season 3 and 4 together. And then you came back and took over as the showrunner again in season 12. And no other showrunner, as far as I can remember, has that experience like you do. I also think
now the show is also many episodes are run by Matt Selman, but Mike and we did everything together.
Yeah. I always think it's interesting. We often go and refer to this old Splitsider article from like 2015 or 13, somewhere in there, but it actually breaks down the jokes per minute for each showrunner. And you in season 4 and season 12, which is what they rated the farthest they had rated at the time, had the highest number of jokes per minute. Is that something that ever gets talked about at the office?
The first I've heard it. I think it's very funny to say an old article from 2015. Yeah, that long ago, but I'll take it. Season 12, part of that was run by Mike Scully. But I'll take it. Excuse me one second.
Oh, you're no worries.
Sorry.
No worries. Scully also, when he was here, he also had the same fear that you did about, he's like, yeah, we really just wanted to not be the person that ran it to the end, because of, at a certain point, the show in those early seasons, you're like, they're never going to go for 10 seasons and 12 seasons and 15 seasons. And then like, here we are, we're about to start 33. And it's still going. Is that something that continues to surprise you? Or at this point, do you see the momentum of The Simpsons just continuing on into perpetuity?
I'm so sorry. I swallowed something that isn't quite going down, but it's a real Homr. I wish it had been a crayon. That'd have been perfect.
Non-toxic.
In terms of,
we don't want to be the podcast that kills you, so please get through this.
Usually podcasts are about murders. This
is how we get on top. Yeah, live action true crime.
The longevity, I see no reason that it will come to an end. We're thinking of really good episodes. We're working as hard as ever. We do well on Fox, and we make money still. The only question I would have is I don't know what the future holds for TV in general. We're owned by Disney now, and Disney is a streamer. So maybe they'll want original episodes for Disney Plus, fewer episodes, longer episodes. I don't know.
See, that's interesting. You bring that up. That was on my list of questions for you. I was going to say the same thing. There's a better chance that TV is going to end, which is funny that the chalkboard gag for this episode is actually network TV is not dead, which is truly ironic here. But I was thinking about that as I was preparing for this episode. There's a better chance, I think, at this point that network TV dies than The Simpsons dies, because it should always have a home at Disney Plus. Or if you guys, if that sweet marriage ever gotten into a divorce, there's Netflix and Hulu, and like The Simpsons is huge. Who wouldn't want to have The Simpsons on their service?
Yeah, no, I don't think that there's any foreseeable way we leave Disney Plus. I think it's going to be around forever.
Yeah,
I think we're made for it, and I think that we occupy a unique position on it. So that's where we'll be. That's where we'll wind up. And again, it depends on what Disney Plus wants. I mean, if you look at them, they've had a lot of success with these big event things like WandaVision and the Beatles, and maybe they'll want to eventize new episodes of The Simpsons. For the moment, we're doing one more season and a half for Fox. And then, again, it's not predicting the future of the show. It's predicting the future of the business.
Yeah, that 100% makes sense. Totally. And with the Disney Plus, it's given you guys some cool opportunities. I know you've been pretty involved or directly involved with the what we call them spin-off projects with like the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe, or you guys have those Disney shorts that are available in the Simpsons characters taking on those roles.
It all comes from tile envy. Disney Plus has 5 tiles: Marvel, Pixar, on their screen, Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, National Geographic, and Disney, and no Simpsons tile. So we wanted to sort of like do something with each, facet of Disney Plus so that people would be aware of us and people would know, oh, we're there too. And, it was great, for example, to do Star Wars. And there actually were Star Wars fans that hadn't sampled The Simpsons and it got them into it. And, the crossovers, I grew up reading Marvel comics and then watching the Star Wars movies. So they're just wonderful to tie in with.
So you're saying that you started like the whole Marvel crossover thing before they actually started it in the movies? So
this is another Simpsons did it. Yeah.
We're more like a little insect riding on the back of a whale. Get some momentum.
Very cool. I was also looking through just your IMDb page, and when I noticed that you had a small role on the show Mad Men, that first of all blew my mind, because I think of you as this like magical force that just sits and produces Simpsons and couldn't possibly have time for other projects. But that got me thinking, what do you watch whenever you're getting away, taking a break from the Simpsons? What's catching your attention right now?
Well, it's funny right now. It's very similar to Mad Men. My wife and I, she was also in the Mad Men episode. We were at a bar between John Hamm and a woman he was hitting on.
Nice.
So really cool. Thanks to Matt Weiner, the Mad Men creator. We're watching The Sopranos again. And man, that really holds up. That's just, every episode is great. And it you see a lot of things, realizing, where they were heading now that you know where it was going. It's really something.
Did you watch the movie that they just came out with recently?
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
We'll probably do that when we get to the very end. It's hard now because knowing what's going to happen, we're in the last 2 episodes, is pretty sad. But it's great from start to finish.
Do you also find yourself watching? I know you do a lot of like appreciation, like even the episode today, Homr, you have there's an Iron Giant hidden in the like comic convention or the animation convention, which I think is like a nod to Brad Bird, who gets a lot of references. Do you still find yourself enjoying other, I guess, adult animation, for lack of a better word? Do you still find yourself watching shows like The Simpsons?
Absolutely. Rick and Morty and South Park and the shows on Fox. It's great. It's a renaissance for animation, both in film and in television. And I couldn't be happier to have been a little part of it and to be, a viewer during it.
I get the idea that you could just sit back every once in a while and be like, yeah, we did that in 2003.
Well, that's one reason I don't watch as much as you might think, because if you've watched them all, you see so many similarities because everybody thinks along the same lines, and, different things come up that everybody hits. So yeah, you want to keep stuff that's original to you without feeling like I can't, we already can't do anything that we've done in the previous 700 episodes. And like 300 South Parks and 300 Family Guy. I mean, forget it. Like, you'll just be completely numb.
I could see where the like anxiety would take over, and you're like, oh, I saw that in the South Park episode. I don't want to use that here. Like, that would drive me absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. There's so much content. You're talking about the future of the business. I mean, something my friends and I talk about often at this point is I consider myself to be a pop culture junkie. And I can't keep up with everything that's on TV nowadays. I mean, like, there's just too many shows to be somebody that consumes everything. You have to like start picking and choosing at a certain point. And that, I think, is also becomes, part of that problem that you just mentioned, where when you've got like 400 different types of shows that are inspired by The Simpsons, you're going to get a lot of recycled plot points, or, The Simpsons in space or whatever.
Like, how do people who vote for the Emmys, and one of them, really know what they're doing? Because it's impossible. There's no way, and I tried like here, during the pandemic to see most of the episodes of most of the top dramas, but it's hard. It's really hard.
Very much so. Very much so. That actually too, when you're talking about thinking back for like 700 episodes of The Simpsons, something that you are known for, I'm not sure if you know that you're known for this or not, but you're known for having an encyclopedic style brain. Like Matthew Klickstein and I had a conversation about this once, where you just have this incredible ability to draw from your mind almost as if it's a filing cabinet. And you proved that last time you were on our show, because we were talking about episodes you might be interested in. We told you where we were at in our podcast, which was like halfway through season 11 at the time. And you sat there for a moment and like went Terminator eyes, and we could see the font going through. And you're like, I think you're coming up on the episode in season 12, like episode 9-ish, Homr. So you have, I think, just like the right, you are the human that was made for this position, Al. That's what it is.
Well, I was fortunate to be there. Most times things happen at The Simpsons, and I try to be accurate. I try to remember who said what, who pitched what, and sometimes I don't know, of course, and then I say that. But writers, because people don't see them, and often, don't catch the credits, it's important to give them credit for like the great things that they did. And any script, no matter whose name is on it, I had my name on a script where Jay Kogan had a really funny line where Burns puts on a brain and says, "Look at me, I'm Davy Crockett." And, I like always give Jay credit for that. Dan Graney, in another episode I wrote, had the line, "Everything's coming up Millhouse," and it's like one of the most famous lines in a script that I did, but it wasn't my line.
That's cool, honestly, just that you make sure to give people credit. That's very admirable in this business for sure, because that's something that you hear a lot of people don't do. In fact, quite the opposite. I did also want to say, though, why is it this episode? What about this episode made you process through and decide, yeah, that's the one? Why is this one special to you?
Well, one way, the two ways I've come up with episode ideas. One was looking at the commandments, like honor the Sabbath, and that led to Homr the Heretic. And then the other way is sort of, movies I loved. As a kid, I read the story Flowers for Algernon, and saw the movie Charlie, and I always thought that was just a really moving, unforgettable story. So, I thought it would be a good story with Homr, where he gets smart, and it's not as tragic, but the tragedy for him is that there's a bond he gets with Lisa that goes away, and he can't have that bond anymore. And the crayon idea, though, wasn't mine, and it was George Meyer's. And it's funny because when it was pitched, I thought about it. I was like, I'm not sure. It sounds funny. Also, it's a little confusing, and I still don't know what I think of it. But it's part of the show. I think it was stolen by a 30 Rock episode, somebody told me. It's part of quote unquote canon. But again, that episode, a lot of people contributed to, and the director, Mike Anderson, did an incredible job. And, I also love and, have loved every time I get a chance to do animation parodies, which we did. And the Kyoto brothers did that great Davy and Goliath parody in the episode where it just looked perfect. I mean, they showed us how Davy and Goliath was shot, and how they would have things that, mismatched, weren't the right size clothes for the dolls and stuff. It was really cool.
I think I might have learned this from you on the commentary that you did on this episode, but I thought it was really cool that the creators of that show, or the animators for that show, I think they did it entirely because they wanted to fund their own project, which was Gumby.
That's correct. Art Clokey was the name of the guy who did it.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And he loved Gumby, because he could do really insane, cool things. And as far as I know, I don't think he loved doing Davy and Goliath, but did it for the money.
Did you ever, it was a show on Adult Swim, like early 2000s ish. It was called Moral Oral. Did you ever catch that show?
No, I never saw it.
It was basically a parody, similar concept, but it was a one of their shorts that they did, the weird hours of the night when everybody's high and watching music videos or Adult Swim. And it would be these shorts where it would be Moral Oral, and it was done in the exact same style, but it was always some misdirected messages, we'll say. It was a good time.
That's funny. Yeah. As a kid, Davy and Goliath was super creepy. It was a talking dog, and the dog was, I guess the conscience of Davy, but it had a very strange voice. It was just like really off. Also because, cartoons, you weren't used to seeing like overt religion in the cartoons, except maybe the Charlie Brown Christmas special. So you would go, this something, just there's a vibe about this. Is really
Why do I feel like I'm going to hell if I watch something after this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I remember I would watch that show as a kid too, but it was literally just because it was on before Gumby or whatever it was that you actually wanted to watch. And a lot of entertainment back then was just like, all right, well, this is better than watching the grass grow.
Yeah, it was a cartoon. So it had that edge for a kid. And at the time in the morning, like Sunday, probably the only cartoon.
Oh, sorry, there. I think we lost you there for a second.
Oh, as you're saying, that time in the morning on Sunday, it was the only cartoon on.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So that actually, all of this talk about animation does somewhat tie into the beginning of this episode that we're talking about today. Again, we're discussing the episode Homr, which was the first episode in the year 2001. It came out on January 7th. We mentioned the chalkboard gag on this one was Network TV is not dead. And there was a fun couch gag on this one for Futurama fans, because we got the pneumatic tubes that we see commonly in the Futurama universe. All the Simpsons show up on the couch, except that we get Fry in Bart's place, and they do a quick switcheroo. But just kind of a fun little Easter egg. I guess Futurama had been out for like 2 years at this point. They're probably starting season 3, maybe. Well,
we've seen a couple of Futurama gags too.
Yeah, it was the dawn of Futurama, and we've had crossover. We've had not just crossover episodes, but a lot of writers from Futurama either started at the Simpsons or came back to the Simpsons. The real pipeline between that show and this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we see that a lot. Again, on the commentaries, I get to hear a lot of fun conversations that you guys have had about those changes and those sharing of ideas, and just the like David X. Cohen, his influence on the Simpsons, and obviously Futurama, and you can really kind of see some of the similarities and those ties to both shows whenever you watch their episodes.
Yes, and I always say, been lauded for the math on the Simpsons, but I go, if the Simpsons is like college math, Futurama is PhD math. that is the mathiest show in the history of TV.
So actually, you brought that up, and that was something that I learned this week, just because I'm a bad Simpsons fan, I suppose. But I've always known that you've gone to Harvard. That's a pretty well-known fact. We talked with Mike about that, and you guys working with like National Lampoon and all that good stuff. But you actually got a math degree at Harvard. Is that correct?
I was a math major and got a bachelor's. Many of the Simpsons writers actually have math and science backgrounds. Jeff Westbrook was a math professor at Yale. David Cohen and Ken Keeler had math degrees. And Stuart Burns, I believe. And Bill Odenkirk, I think, has a chemistry degree. So it's funny. Yeah, a lot of science guys in the Simpsons.
That honestly makes a lot of sense, just with the amount of math, like you talked about it, your PhD level, master's level, or bachelor's level with the math jokes. But there's a ton of math jokes in the Simpsons. I have a friend who he's an actuary, and he's actually not a Simpsons fan. We're not all perfect, but he exists. Yeah, exactly. But I will send him clips from the show that are just the math jokes, and like honestly, sometimes it's like, hey man, I don't get this. Will you explain it to me? And that actually really makes a lot of sense that's the degree plan that a lot of people had. But yeah, when I read that you had the math degree from Harvard, you would think it would have been a creative art of some sort.
No, and we'd love jokes that people have to have explained for them.
The best jokes are the ones you have to explain. Every good comedian knows this. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. Lengthy explanations, the maximum time between hearing it and laughing. Yes, all that's good.
Those are few and far between, to be fair. I think I get all the Homr jokes on the show, so that keeps me going. And everyone that's a Lisa IQ or above, I have to have it slowed down for me. This episode was actually a tough watch. No. We actually talk a lot on this show about how we're both in our 30s. We both grew up watching The Simpsons in that era where some of our friends weren't allowed to watch it. Some of our friends, their parents just assumed it's a cartoon, so it must be for children. We've got a pretty good range of that. But one of our favorite things to talk about is how the episodes hit as a child versus how we experience them now. And a common thing that we come across is how much our views of Lisa and the Lisa-centric episodes have changed. Because often as kids, we both will admit that we found Lisa episodes pretty boring. We're like, oh, it's emotional. We just want to see Bart get in trouble or Homer be a doofus or whatever. But watching it back as, semi-mature adults, we occasionally find ourselves tearing up a little more at the Lisa moments, which obviously are the heart of a lot of these episodes.
That's so interesting. I never would have thought that there'd be such a difference. I know John Schwartzfelder, who never wrote Lisa episodes, would say, I live in a neighborhood, and when the Lisa ones are on, you just see the kids run outside and play. But I actually always centered on the Lisa episodes, and it was because we were working for Jim Brooks, who I'd grown up watching Mary Tyler Moore and Taxi, and it was just the best shows, not just funny, but emotionally. And I wanted to write the shows that had some emotion in them too. In the writing business, you're always pigeonholed. We were originally like variety writers, like for Carson. And then we were considered sort of silly show writers like Alf. And, but of course you can do more than that. And so we wanted to show on The Simpsons that we could write things that had emotion to them and depth, and that's been one of the many wonders of working on The Simpsons.
I definitely feel like what Miles said. I mean, this episode definitely, I like seeing Homer and Lisa interact and be on the same page. But yeah, it's watching this episode a couple times. It hits. There's just something about it. It hits harder as an adult. I don't know, because you step into those roles where maybe one day, Miles, you could be a dad, or I could be a dad. I'll
stick with my dogs, but still, I love my dogs. And,
if you turn Lisa,
I could connect with them more.
If Lisa was Sam's little helper in that episode, I'd lose my mind. But yeah, just all the Homer and Lisa stuff. Like, I love seeing those scenes as an adult. I don't like it. It feels really good. It feels pure. Like I love seeing a dad and daughter bond over being smart together. It was great.
Well, I have two daughters, so obviously drew on that. And the thing that I thought that was great about it is Lisa's someone who has, through this course of the series, never quite had somebody she could talk to exactly. So for a brief while she did, and it was wonderful. And then she loses it. And then of course there's the letter at the end. But, I thought that was like something that would be a good sort of sad concept, but emotionally fulfilling.
Yeah. I think it was written about, again, a lot in Springfield Confidential when we talk with Mike Reese, but that phrase that we often use on this podcast is the smart, the art, and the heart. And it's that trifecta that truly, I think, separates The Simpsons from most other shows. Uh-oh.
You made him tear
up. That was either a really good comment or a really bad comment. Hopefully we'll get him back here in just a moment.
But yeah, that's the chalkboard gag at the beginning definitely got me going on a good little laugh for a while. That I felt kind of sad after that.
It was kind of perfect, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was perfect timing, especially in this day and age.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Welcome back, man.
I guess we did planted commercial break there. We had a little power outage.
Yeah, that's all. Hopefully it's not rolling storms. We were just chatting a little bit, but we have a lot more to talk to you about. So we're glad that you're still here with us.
Me too.
Very cool. So you picked this episode. You said Flowers for Algernon or Algernon. How do you say that?
Yeah. Flowers for Algernon was the basis of the show. It was originally a short story or a short novel about a guy who gets really smart. At the same time, a mouse gets really smart, but then the program has only a temporary effect, and he goes back to being what he was, and it's very tragic. Like,
as I said, that one has like a iconically tragic ending, if I remember right. Yeah.
And like the people that befriended him when he was smart are really, really sad about it. And then it was a movie with Cliff Robertson, which I watched before I wrote the episode. And what's funny about the movie was it was made in the 60s, and in the middle, there's this crazy like psychedelic sequence with triple screens, and he's wearing a motorcycle jacket that says Charlie Baby and riding it around. And I go, like, there's no other year they would have filmed this that they would have put this scene really, really out of place. It's just like not at all, based on the story, but otherwise good. And Cliff Robertson won an Oscar for the movie, so he's obviously really good. But it was just a story that always haunted me. When you read that in 8th grade, it's just really, really something that sticks with you. And I always wanted to do it as a Simpsons.
So this one opens up. We were talking too about how, you appreciate a lot of animation, but you guys have so many successful people that go on. Brad Bird was who we mentioned earlier. They go on to have careers in Hollywood and with other shows. This one opens up in a fun way with the America's, basically it was the animation festival, but the sign was really, really funny because it's the hottest, most fucked up animation possible. Children, half price.
Yeah. I think it's based on that. It is like a Spike and Mike's Twisted Animation Festival or something. And, then kids go, yeah.
And Homer has this fun kind of almost self-aware, if he were a smarter character. Animation's so great. It's way better than whatever the alternative is. Such a good opening line. This kind of does a just love letter to animation in general for a little bit. You guys are poking fun, but in a very accurate to the style sort of way. You do some anime with some absolute nonsense. I'm sure Richie was super into it. I don't understand it myself, but I'm glad it makes people happy. Optimus
Prawns.
I think that was the first anime. Maybe not. I know they went to Japan earlier, but possibly the first anime reference on the show. Okay. One of the first.
Prawn power. It was absolutely wacky, and it does, though. It's very representative, at least at the time, what a lot of anime looked like to people that were not used to watching anime. I definitely remember some times in high school where friends were like, "Oh no, you just gotta see this one, then you're gonna love it." And I'm just like, I've seen it. Not loving it, but glad it's making you happy. Like
that's never how you talk somebody into liking something, is by telling them they're going to love it.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, you need to really lower the bar for sure.
Yeah. No, I do. I go, oh, you're gonna hate it. It's not that great.
Trash show. Yeah.
That's why you're going into season 33 soon.
Yes, exactly. Lowered expectations and help us go along.
We also get the great sequence we already talked about, Gravy and Jobriath. I love the Flanders reaction to this. Ned supporting it as we get the usual Rod and Todd, yay, as like the dog is being exploded. Pretty awful. And then we get to the voiceover artist demonstration.
Can I mention a thing about Ned, which is there's a big thing where people say we changed the character and made him a more conservative Christian as opposed to like the super nice guy he was at the beginning. And it's a little bit valid. In this episode, we did that. And part of it was because I thought the nature of what, a Christian was changed, between the time the show started and the time this aired. But I would also say that Ned has always been like a much better neighbor than Homer. No matter what phase of the show you're in, you'd rather be Ned's neighbor. So I think we've stuck to him being pretty nice, pretty much.
getting up or like woken up early every Sunday by somebody pestering you to go to church is definitely better than like having all of your appliances, yard tools, and whatever else being sold by your neighbors at their yard sale. So yeah, I think that's a fair statement. There's also, you guys also slip in a really fun homage to the old like basically back in the day when like the Flintstones would sell cigarettes to kids essentially on their, hey, a pack of Winston's.
Yeah, there was a band to cartoons, festival that I saw where you saw a commercial. First of all, it was Betty and Wilma mowing the lawns, Fred and Barney just sitting smoking, and they held the cigarette pack right up to the screen. And then what I didn't realize, what I just saw like recently, the end credits to the show, for several years in the show for kids, they had a big red Winston sign in the end credits nonstop. And I was like, geez, that's insane. I mean, cigarettes in a show for kids. I mean, it's just really nuts. So yeah, that's what that refers to.
I remember when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 2004. And I remember in high school, there was some big debate about Winston cigarettes sponsoring NASCAR, and that was being considered too controversial. So the idea that, NASCAR can't is having a problem with cigarettes in 2004, but in the 1960s, it's like the number one cartoon in America. Smoke it up, baby. It's fine.
It's insane. I just, there's things you see from 50 years ago. You just go, this is unbelievable.
Very cool. And this gets into another really interesting part of the show where I have some notes I'm excited to talk with you about here, because we get into this, what is it? It's a animation motion caption simulator, I guess. It's a suit that we now see all the time in movies. I'm pretty sure every movie you see ever includes this in some scene or the other. It was most popularized by Gollum in Lord of the Rings, I believe, or that's one of the first like big examples of this technology being used. But essentially, you guys showed Homr demonstrating a motion caption suit at this animation festival. He's making Snoopy do his thing. He's going to the bathroom right off stage, which is really funny. Singing his little song about eroding the urinal cake, which, let's be fair, that's a banger when you're peeing.
It reminded me of Naked Gun on that part.
There's a couple things that I was interested about this scene. So first of all, this is what I was talking about earlier in the episode. There was on the commentary, which I should say mentioned Mike Scully, Ian Maxstone Graham, Mike Anderson, Matt Selman, Tom Gamble, and Al Jean. You guys talked about, at the time, there was an Australian theme park company that was contacting you about using this technology for a ride or using some sort of version of this to make some sort of attraction in Australia. Do you have any recollection of that whatsoever?
I do. It was demonstrated for us, and it was even more. They were saying perhaps you could, do animated shows using this technology, which would be theoretically much less expensive and much quicker. But obviously, it has its limits in terms of animation. So, we used it when we had Homr go live. We used it, which is only about a 3-second bit. We did about 5 seasons ago. And we, it never really was what it was, proposed to be for the animation industry. You can't really, take away the role, whether it's digital or hand done, of the artist.
That's I'm glad that you brought up the live sequence you guys did, because that was the second thing I wanted to talk about. I thought it was really funny on this commentary, which again, this is the season 12 DVD box set. So I believe the commentary for that would have been done right after the Simpsons movie, approximately like 2008-ish. And you guys were all talking about the potential that this technology had, about the idea of it could go live. And then, of course, 8 years later, I have it in 2016 is when you guys had Homr go live. So I love this like weird time capsule I got to experience of you guys 8 years before it happens, talking about the idea of how it could work.
Yeah. And then the interesting thing to me is just how slow it's been. That we were originally looking at it in 2000, and then we finally use it for 3 minutes in 2018 or whatever it was. So yeah, as I say, it doesn't. Animation seems to have a very sound future, but I don't think that is going to be like the mainstay of it.
I feel like if it hasn't made it in these last 8 years, they're probably on to all new technology. I mean, I assume you guys are going to make the show without actors any day now.
Well, that wouldn't be good for us, but no. I'll say something totally unrelated to our show. There was a documentary about Anthony Bourdain, and they wanted to have him say something he had written in an email. So they used an AI voice, and the line was in the movie as if he said it, and I didn't catch it.
That's honestly terrifying.
Yeah. So because then when you think about it, you go, no, this was an email. He would never have said it out loud. So that may come. Yes.
Yeah, that's always you see what they can do. Like audio editors can piece together things from all sorts of stuff that you've said. And when you guys are talking The Simpsons, I mean, you've got 32 years of Dan Castellaneta saying literally everything in multiple voices. So like you could probably reconstruct. I mean, you just take like, old recordings of like Dan and Harry Shearer, and you could probably put together some Simpsons episodes.
Well, like I say, it's not like people go, oh, we need 100 more Simpsons episodes. So I don't think that's going to happen in the case of our show for several reasons. But
I'm not saying it should. I'm saying it could, Al. I'm saying it could.
Well, I'm saying in terms of other shows, I'm sure it will. I mean,
that's
sure,
scary. Yeah.
Yeah, that they'll, have an actor record all the like consonant and vowel sounds and then use it as a template and then just write based, have the machine generated voice be what's in the show.
That sounds like the blurst of times.
It is the blurst of times. Yes.
I'm sad. I had to. I made the terrible choice of eating at a McDonald's. That was my first mistake. But my second obstacle, there was no human to order at this McDonald's. Like everything was through a kiosk. Yeah. I had to I went up to the counter and they like just point over at the machine. And I'm just like, I hate this life. I want to just say, give me a number 2 and then give you some money. And then, commerce happens, but whatever. It's let me go yell at some clouds. Cause that's the way it was back in my day.
And
style at the time.
You book your own plane flights. I mean, but it's not going to go backwards. Anything where they can have you do the work, pumping your own gas or whatever, that's not going to go back. Right.
Pumping gas is an interesting example. Yeah. Because that wasn't always the case.
My father owned a gas station and yeah, I know. I mean, he'd do the whole thing, and the wipe, clean the windows and all gone pretty much.
Wow. Well, a way that you can see if a business has long-term potential is if Homer Simpson wants to invest in it. I think that's a good baseline. And we find out.
Is it a counter indicator or
we find out that Homer is not only an investor for this animation company, he is the only investor for this animation.
And they call him out.
On the news, they even announce him. This is very bad news for the one and only stockholder. But I love that we get this whole sequence with Homer at the bank trying to withdraw his life savings, only to have the obstacle that it's a joint account, so he needs his wife permission. And we get some of the best scenes in The Simpsons, I think, that, or at least for Richie and I, a lot of times, are the scenes where Dan Castellaneta is talking to himself. Now, sometimes that's in the form of Homer talking to Abe or other characters, but in this case, it's Homer doing an impression of Marge and doing an impression of Lisa, all while being behind a plant that's very clearly not covering him, to a bank teller who is clearly just not paid enough to care about giving away money or candy to this idiot of a man.
Yes. Well, yeah, we love having the characters do other characters' voices. It's always really funny. And Dan is so versatile. Ironically, we just heard there's an Emmy rule change where for the voiceover Emmy now, you can't submit yourself as Dan Castellaneta, voice of Homer, Krusty, and Grandpa. You can just say, I'm Dan Castellaneta, voice of Homer. And they can't listen to your other characters in the episode. I don't know why that is.
Weird. That's a weird rule.
It's like the Dan, Seth MacFarlane, Hank Azaria rule.
That's like that gymnast that was so good. I can't think of her name. Gabby, maybe. She's incredible. She was the Summer Olympic gymnast, and they changed the rules that basically were like, you can't get 10s anymore because you're too good at this sport. It's like, that's not fair. Gabby Douglas, I want to say. That's right. That sounds right. We'll go with that. But yeah, I love the scene. They did mention on the commentary that apparently when it went to animation, they kept covering up Homer with the plant, and they're like, guys, that ruins the joke. Like, we need to be able to see bits and pieces of him acting this out behind the scenes.
No, it's really funny when talking with the Korean studio and they're doing it right, but it's like, no, we want it wrong.
Yeah, do it right. Do it wrong the right way, please. I like this scene a lot with Homer. Some of my favorite times on the show is when you guys make fun of either Fox or Disney, especially Disney now, knowing what we know in the future.
Right. So,
but this sequence with Homer,
they're all on Disney Plus. They haven't cut any of them. All
good.
That's honestly great. Like, you got to have a sense of humor, or to some extent. But yeah, I love the scene where Homer's checking the stock prices on the audio, like it's like an automatic thing. He's just saying it and they say back, but he checks Animotion, which is up 1.5, and then Yahoo, Yahoo up 6.25.
What is this crap?
Fox Broadcasting down 8.
Yes.
And you guys, in like several scenes, we were talking about this when you got disconnected for a minute. There's so many like little subtle things with the animation of this episode. Homer rolls his eyes in bed with Marge later, and this one right after you take that stab at Fox, Homer just gets the sneakiest little smile for just a brief second.
That's Mike Anderson doing that. That he's just great. He's really great at little moments, big things, everything. The subtleties, I think, really just bring a whole nother level to the show. The animation does such a great job, and that's what you were talking about, I think, at the beginning, where there's the cohesive, I think, situation where you guys have been working together for so long. I would imagine when you have jokes written, a lot of times they also kind of have a vision of where you're going, but I also imagine you have a trust that they will take it and just add those little cherries to bring the whole Sunday together. Totally. Yeah. I mean, we give board notes. It used to be written on the boards. Now we actually get video boards and we can do a rewrite based on that. So there's another level. We do, video boards, then an animatic and then a color. But yeah, I mean, they're the best. And Mike is one of the very best of them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Again, that's that type of that's something that you can't create right off the bat. I think about that a lot as like how the MCU has put itself together. DC and a lot of other companies have tried to be like, oh, they have a cinematic universe. We want to have a cinematic universe too. But the MCU put in the groundwork going back to like 2007 with Iron Man and the Hulk and laying out all those movies and getting us to care about characters that people didn't really care about that much before Robert Downey Jr. put on the suit. And they laid that foundation to give them the ability to have this awesome universe now. And I think that could probably be said about some of the cartoon shows that get made, especially with the number of streaming services there are. There's some really great animation out there, but there's some shows that come out and they're just like, guys, you haven't established yourself to be trying to make this style of show or these style of jokes.
Yeah, totally. And I agree with the Marvel Universe. I was astounded at the way it was put together and the way it came together. I mean, the confidence that you could do it and the ability to have it all connect was just awesome.
Yeah. That's something that, like, 3-4 movies a year. It's like, wow, I get to see another piece of the collective saga. It's almost like when you get really into a TV show that runs for like a drama series that runs for a long time and you really get to know the nuances of the characters. It's special. And that's, again, what I think is cool watching The Simpsons, knowing that exists in the creative side of your show.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, where it's thought through. I was just thinking of writing something into one episode that would pay off like 8 episodes later, but we really don't do that very much. One thing in comedy, we were always taught, make every episode independent so that if a viewer happens on one, they don't need to understand this huge backstory to get the show. Mm-hmm. And we've pretty much obeyed that rule. We have the elastic reality where everything goes back to the way it was at the start. I think it helps. Even comic shows where there's like a storyline, appeal less to me because running plot lines through the show, because it's sort of like once you know where it's going and how it ends, you're a little less inclined to go through it again.
Sure. Yeah. If you're not going to be as emotionally invested if you figured out the mystery.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's something that I read when I was a lot younger, whereas if you're predicting what's going to happen next and you're so focused on saying, well, in this horror movie, this person's going to die, then this person, and this is going to happen, they're going to be in the closet, that you've already lost interest in the movie if you're doing it that way. If you're focused more on figuring out the plot than just sit back and enjoying it.
Yes, absolutely.
That was it was the Rian Johnson movie that came out, Knives Out. I think that was like a great example of a movie where like you had that running thought of like you are trying to figure it out, but you're so engaged with all of the characters that you at certain points you stop thinking about the mystery and you're just like, this is incredible. Like I'm loving the story.
Yeah, definitely. Although in that movie, I think it was like Chris Evans, I thought, oh, he's guilty. And then he was guilty. So
yeah, exactly.
It wasn't really like a twist, it's just this very guilty acting guy is the one.
He was a red herring that wasn't actually a red herring. Yeah.
No.
Sometimes the obvious choice is the correct choice in real life.
Yeah. We get some other great family gags here with Homer calling for the family meeting. And he like clearly starts with this like joke that he always uses because he's like, all right, people, let's keep this short. We all want to get home to our families. And they all have this like collective chuckle, like they've heard it 1,000 times. And then he tries to like basically bury this, tiny little nugget of information of I lost her life savings in the stock market. Now let's move on to the real issue. Lisa's hogging all the maple syrup. And for like a brief second, it works because Lisa gets defensive. She's like, well, maybe if mom didn't make such dry waffles. Yeah, I said it.
But if you need some meat, have a natural lubricant.
Yeah, we were really into the they're picking on her for the meat eating then. Or the not meat eating, I should say, on her part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all does eventually finally Marge, like literally mid-sentence, like, wait a second, you lost all of our money? I didn't lose all of our money. There was enough left for this cowbell that disintegrates. And then you take a stab at eBay. I love it.
It's Miles and I have talked that over the last few seasons, we've really been enjoying the quick little jabs that Marge has been given. Cause I feel like she didn't always get those in the earlier seasons because she was a lot of the heart in the earlier seasons. But I feel like she's getting a little more slowly, more and more in on all the shenanigans. And especially
the actress is so funny. We're just always trying to give her funny stuff to do because she's great.
Yeah.
It
absolutely.
really, she's, I feel like shining at this point in The Simpsons. Again, we've been doing this going episode by episode. And early on, I think that she's somewhat, she has to be the straight man to Homer and Bart's antics to make it so that why it's funny is because she's the person reacting like you'd expect a human to. But yeah, the fact that she is starting to be a little bit more of a Simpson herself, I think at this stage in her lifespan is really fun to watch.
Also, she makes Homer lovable because she loves him. So it excuses what that's very key to the show.
Yeah, very, very much so. That actually is the end of our first act, and we open up Act 2 with Homer trying to figure out how he's going to solve their issues, and he realizes that Marge has an answer. After all, it's not a uterus, it's a uter-you. No, it's uterus, not uteru. I fucked up your own joke, but
it's actually an Max Cross joke. I should give him credit.
It's a good joke.
Super good line.
He wants to rent out Marge's womb to a childless couple. And I think this might be my favorite joke in the episode, but I'll probably say that 3 more times. If you agree, Marge, just signify by getting indignant. He decides to go to an alternate option where he could find some extra cash by putting himself out there for medical research.
Because Barney talks him into it.
Which, again, this comes from you on the commentary talking about this was like an actual thing that would happen on like college. You went to Harvard, so this is on college campus, I would imagine, where there is people that would offer money if you're willing to like let them do whatever to you. Yeah,
well, drug testing and Harvard was known for like half the students I think were on LSD in 1962, like on purpose. It's funny because people do this for not that much money. So you're going like, wow, you're really putting yourself at a kind of a risk.
I love the bit with Barney having all the ears on his chest, and then like when Moe yells into it, he's like, "Hey, not so loud!" Just because that's like the pretty extreme example of what you hear about happening.
It can turn out really badly.
For sure, yeah. And then I think they've also referenced a few times on the show, which I don't know who it was that chimed in. Again, there's several people on the audio commentary for this one, but several of the writers apparently had sold blood at points in their life trying to get by.
Yes.
Which, good money.
Several sold blood. One was a sperm donor. I mean, when you're in college, I mean, I didn't do any of that stuff, but I was in student security. So you would do a lot of stuff just to get pizza money. And that's, that's how colleges operate.
When I was in school, I got myself into a lot of credit card issues because I was at a time when they were very predatory, and literally I would be like on campus and it would be like somebody would come by and be like, "Hey, we'll give you a free pizza if you sign up for this credit card." And I'd be like, "Okay." And then somebody else would come by and be like, here's a 6-pack of beer if you sign up for this credit card. Okay. And I would just do that, pretty much every day until they stopped saying yes. And it turns out that's a really bad choice if you're a young adult trying to get started.
So many things. I mean, I do remember getting a credit card right when I graduated. It was like, get a credit card. And that's nice. And now I go, oh, geez. Like the people who can, use it, who can afford it the least.
100%. Yeah, 100% predatory. I mean, like now the things that they did while I was on campus are illegal. They are no longer allowed to do that. But I imagine if you went back to the 1960s running around the Harvard campus, there was probably even more lax rules about what you could do to students.
Well, yes.
Sure they were.
Though I was thinking when you said half the population was like being experimented with like LSD, how mad would you be if like a decade after you graduated, you go to your reunion and you find out you were in the control group? What a bummer. That's funny.
Sue them for that.
Right. Homr does, in fact, get himself experimented on. Another great line here is when they're testing an appetite suppressant on him. They're like, "Wow, this is working really great." You don't even want any of that food, Mr. Simpson?
Food? I'm blind. Ah!
One of the scientists is like, "Who's going to buy a pill that makes you blind?"
We'll let marketing worry about that.
That's so like, I feel like that's 100% how the medical field works. They're like, "Well, the side effect was this." Like, will people buy that?
Not if we say it really fast.
So many discoveries are like penicillin, where it was just some mold growing, and then suddenly, hey, wait, fights bacteria. You don't know what it's going to be used for.
Yeah, Q-tips for your chest after a while. But Homr does end up, doing his own experiments with where he has to get is it a CAT scan or he's just getting X-ray? That's what I thought was weird, because at one point they're able to like tilt the X-ray 20 degrees to the left or whatever. And I'm like, I don't think that's how X-rays work.
No, you're correct.
Zoom in.
I do love though that you guys
cartoon X-rays work.
Yeah.
I love that you guys covered, because we've seen Homr get X-rayed in the head specifically probably 30 times at this point. And he mentions like, "Oh, weird. How have you never noticed this crayon in here before?" Well, I've got an answer for that. I always hold my X-rays with my thumb over it, just like this.
Yeah,
little Dr. Hibbert.
There are always people in the room who are like, "I have a bump with the joke. Why did they never see it?" So yeah, that was to answer the person in the room who pointed that out.
And then whenever he's like, "I'll show myself out." That's all he said.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah, I got it. I guess that does help though, if you have a large number of people who are familiar with a show that has 700 episodes to have to correct.
Well, the truth is, everything doesn't exactly match. I hate to be the one that says it.
Well, we all know that occasionally a wizard does it. That's just true.
Yeah, and they were in high school in 1974, and now it's 2022. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if this brought any questions up about the Simpsons gene, which because that's supposed to make all the males stupid, and I had the answer for it as well. Where I was going to say the Simpsons gene just makes the males want to stick crayons up their nose.
Huh, that's a good answer.
Feasible.
Thank you.
It writes
I'll use
itself.
that.
Yeah. You know,
But see,
actually, oh, go ahead.
There's the thing is like the Simpsons gene, you know, it was a clever ending to that episode. But, you know, running a thing to just say about an entire family and like the way you have the character now. So, yeah, there's stuff that we've done where we don't really mean it.
It's a cartoon show, people.
You know, while you got disconnected earlier, Richie and I were actually discussing this idea that a lot of these episodes in this time period specifically, for whatever reason, we just have vastly different memories of the proportion of the episodes. And a perfect example of that is in this episode, both of us remember it being a lot more about the crayon in the brain. And that's like maybe 30 seconds of screen time total, where you do Homer going, we see a young child Homer counting, sneezing out, assuming he got most of them probably. We remember that being like the focal point of this episode. Yeah. And it's so interesting when we watch it back to see how very little, I mean, it obviously impacts the episode in a big way, but it takes up very little screen time.
Yes, as I say, it wasn't part of the original pitch. The pitch was, you know, in the movie, Charlie goes into a medical test and, you know, was dumb, becomes smart. So my original way of doing it was just Homer gets the treatment that makes him smarter. So the appearances of the crayon are at the beginning, and then, you know, when Mo has to replace it at the end, which
not quite dumb enough.
Yeah, which is also kind of like a bit of a reach.
I love that business card so much. Yep, that's right. I'm a doctor.
I know. I would have expected Dr. Nick there, but
yeah, that does seem like a Dr. Nick situation. Do you remember why you went with Mo on that?
I thought it was funnier for Mo to be the guy. It's a sort of a illegal operation, and I know Dr. Nick is like skirts the law, but more seedy, and, you know, to have it done at Mo's just kind of tragic.
That's fair. Yeah. Mo actually, or I'm sorry, Dr. Nick actually has an office and probably a degree from some country that offered one. But Mo is just like, you know, has him next to the panda pin.
Dr. Nick is like the Hollywood upstairs medical school, I think.
Yeah, there you go. There's also another really good joke here. It's great just because it's kind of subtle in a way. It's Homer basically says that he underwent a procedure to increase his IQ 50 points. And then we later find out that he has a IQ of 105, which it's funny for two reasons, because that basically puts Homer right on the line of having like a mental disability on average. And then it puts him, he's acting like a genius, but I believe 105 IQ is pretty close to like dead center of the average on the spectrum.
The way that the IQ test was designed, originally supposed to be 100 was the median. And for some reason, I think it has gone up. You know, I don't know why that is, but so that was the joke. But yeah, actually, if Homer really had an IQ as low as we were saying, that would be pretty low. Have very great difficulty doing things.
Just barely making that line of smarter than a dog, right?
Yeah. No, and it's funny because I do agree with people who say, well, his intelligence, especially in this episode, but his intelligence goes in spurts. You know, when the show started, he was more angry than dumb. And then he kind of got dumber, but then, you know, there were people who were saying he's too dumb. So we tried to make him a little smarter. And sometimes he's too smart. Him knowing things like, you know, the Supreme Court justices or whatever.
Well, you would think every once in a while he sneezes and the crayon shifts a little. So that explains it.
You guys are explaining everything. I'm going to write all
over. But the immediate benefit to Homer coming back smarter, there is a great bit where Bart is like, I don't believe it. Say something else smart.
Yeah.
There's this whole Joyce brothers may be highly known for psychological credentials, but they're highly suspect.
Yeah. Just taking a stab at her as well. But Lisa is excited in this moment.
A person who guessed it on the show. Yeah.
That's how you know they have a sense of humor, right? Like, that's got to be a good rule.
Well, it's not. It's too late for them to pull their previous appearance.
True. This is another one of those times where you kind of see a happy moment in Lisa's very tragic life a lot of times, because for this experience or this change in Homr, it's given her the opportunity to connect with her father in a way that we've only seen like maybe 2 or 3 other times before. Like when they connected at the museum over the obelisk, or, you know, things like that, where you get these moments where Lisa and her dad come together. But usually it's Lisa having to go on her dad's level, like when she became a football fan, for instance. This was a case where Homr upped his game or his intelligence and was able to connect to Lisa on her level. And it does not take long before we realize that might not be as great as you would think from the outside looking in.
Well, and then in season 30, which you'll get to, I guess, in about 2052, I wrote an episode.
We'll be dead by then, but somebody will take over this podcast. We're confident.
It was an episode where they were bonding over Lisa reading To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, and anything where you can get like a genuine emotion that connects the two of them is really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. They make for some of the, like I said, as kids, they were moments where we're like, boring. I'm not a girl who's connecting with her father. This doesn't relate to me at all. Versus now it's just like, it's dusty in here where I'm watching The Simpsons. Mind your business. I'll
say something. As a kid myself, I used to hate shows with kids in them. Like, I would hate kid actors. I think they acted really phony. It's weird, you know, what you actually like as a kid and what people think you like.
Yeah.
But we always thought with The Simpsons that the animation won over kids no matter what. You know, it was just so cool to look at. And, you know, the key is always with an animated show or a movie to win over the adults. Yeah.
The art style alone, I think, I don't know whose quote this is. It's somebody else's. Probably works for the show. It might have been you, but I love this. I love this quote I've heard where they draw the Simpsons in the style because the weird colors and art will attract the children, and then the heartfelt moments and the humor will attract the like middle aged, and then the cute art and colors will attract the elderly.
Well, the colors, like the fact that they're yellow, was the inspiration of an animator named Georgie Pelusi, although she also wanted to make like the trees purple and stuff. But that was a brilliant idea, and, you know, brilliant for Matt to do it. And what I say, or my comment on the visual style, is if you have a 7-year-old draw Bart Simpson, you can take that drawing and show someone and go, "What is this?" And they'll say Bart Simpson. It's these characters are very deceptively simple and universal, and you know, it makes them archetypal.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Just in that, like, even point. Basically, you're saying even a poorly done drawing of any of these characters is recognizable, and that's pretty incredible. Very cool.
Miles, I figured that like your favorite scene in this episode was probably the one with Homr and Ned.
I am a snarky atheist, so this does bring me joy.
I love that scene. I just like that he's got the proof, and then Ned's like, "Well, I can't let this get out." That line really makes me laugh.
And I think my favorite part of that sequence too is Homr did it by accident. He's like, I was trying to do a flat tax proposal, and I accidentally disproved God. And then as Ned's like, "Oh God, this is airtight."
Maybe he made a mistake. Nope, it's airtight.
Well, it's funny. It's a little bit based on Gödel's theorem, Godel, where it talks about a system of sufficient strength relies on, you know, assumptions in order to be created, I believe. But the funny thing to me is, like, you know, or maybe we are making that off character. It's like, wait, wouldn't you want everybody to know? Like, you're supposed to be a good guy. This could save a lot of problems.
We see that while Homr is not accidentally disproving religion, he is off doing basically TED Talks at the school about not putting things up your nose. It's the third in the series of lectures on not putting things up your nose, actually.
I know. So how many points can he make about it? Exactly.
This is probably the best part of this whole situation is the way that Homr just owns Nelson. Which is fun because Nelson is usually, you know, he's a bully. We see him get the best of people a lot of times, and every once in a while it's great to see him get his comeuppance. In this case, too, he tries to do the classic, a moron says what, and Homer just gets him back in the best way. Well, not being a moron, I wouldn't know. However,
What?
ladies and gentlemen, I give you your moron.
And then he starts saying,
I remember when I was younger, some kid came up and said, "Hey, stupid." And, the response is like, "Ah, you looked." But when they said, "Hey, stupid," I said, "That's me." And the kid was like, "What? Damn it.
I don't have a punchline anymore."
Yeah, I know. So
I've his power.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, turn it on him.
But that scene was also good because at the end you get that look between Homer and Lisa where she's like, "Oh, he's smart," and he's showing him the benefits of being smart, and I'm connecting with them, and you guys are just ready to rip the carpet out from under us here.
Yeah.
Homer actually is like borderline inspirational in this moment because after he earns everybody's respect by owning the bully, he encourages them to use their own brains to do creative things like painting, singing, or dancing, only to immediately be followed by Skinner announcing that due to budget cuts, the creative arts classes are canceled, and you better leave the auditorium quickly because it is being turned into a mini mall as a bulldozer like crushes through the side of the building.
We really should have a clicker as to how many times like arts have been canceled at Springfield Elementary. It's got to be over 20 by now.
And especially with like Lisa being a constant in the music department, because at least during the credits in every episode, she's jamming on the saxophone. So you have to assume that at times there's been no official band program, and there's just a few band nerds hanging out jamming together, trying to keep it alive.
Well, it's funny too because Mr. Largo hates it so much, but he's always there at the opening. And another one of our sort of people who do something in Springfield and hate what they do. It's like, that's our view of life.
Oh, that hits too close to home. No, I'm just kidding.
God, if you hated doing a podcast,
you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
This is the turning point in the episode where Homer's intelligence is going to backfire essentially, or start to cause him more problems than positives with his connection with his daughter, because he's now actually doing his job efficiently, which I imagine Mr. Burns hates because that's not how his business works. He's decided to completely undercut or go around Mr. Burns and just send his results to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And at first, Lenny and Carl are like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Every day there's more skin on my pillow."
Yeah, it's nice to have someone with brains in this nuclear power plant. Homer's the guy who's rigged up my pants with a special cod piece.
And it's like made of like a 1980s like neon windbreaker material. It looks like it's like he's wearing like normal pants with this very, very loud cod piece.
Yeah.
But it sure is comfy.
It is a sort of a funny idea that's what a smart person does.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
The funny thing too is like our brief research into nuclear plants, before the show started, indicated we weren't that far off the mark. It's like, there's a lot of screwed up stuff that goes on, and the nuclear plant by us has been shut down because it has too many holes in the coolant system. Of course, everybody knows about Chernobyl. I mean, it's a pretty risky thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like it's just in general. This is, again, though, it ends pretty much how you'd expect it to in this moment, because Homer's complaints and the problems that he's listed are very real and have been not dealt with for about a decade at this point, it would seem. And it does not take long at all for everybody to turn on Homer. I love like Lenny and Carl are like, "Oh, thanks a lot, jerk. You made us lose our job. We need that for working and driving to."
Which, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we once got a network note that was, make sure to remind people the characters want money, not on The Simpsons. But it's like, what kind of a note is that? Yeah, it's like, people don't realize the characters want money. It's like,
what an odd note. But I enjoyed that, like, at this episode, this issue of them losing their jobs doesn't ever get resolved. So
yeah, again, it's the elastic reality. Like, I don't think you have to resolve everything. And, we've done, I mean, the town moved, in the sanitation commissioner episode, and certain things have come and gone. You just go, when you watch another Simpsons, we're assuming it's back at square one, except for the, very unusual changes like Mrs. Krabappel passing or something, very unless it's one of those.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
I like the phrase elastic reality because we usually use Simpsons reset, but elastic reality
good
sounds
one too.
Much
Or
more.
back to square one is what I've said this before. You may have heard it. Like my idea for the end of the show, should there ever be one, and there's no imminent need, but would be that we go in the last episode back to the Christmas pageant that was in the first episode, so that the entire series is a continuous loop with no beginning or end, like most animation.
I've quoted you on that many times on this podcast because that is also the way that I think would be the most beautiful way. Again, first of all, I think The Simpsons at this point is going to live forever. The world will end, or the nuclear power will fail before the show stops. But if you did ever need an ending point, that also is how I think would be the most poetic and perfect way to end the series.
The only time we got somewhat close was during they wanted us to cut the budget significantly before, I think, season 23, so that Holidays of Future Past, which was a Christmas episode, was considered as a series finale. And never before or since has there been a point where it came, to even that discussion.
Yeah. There was one thing that brings us to the end of our second act on this one. We have one to go, but there's one thing I did want to bring up. I thought was kind of funny from the commentary, and that was during the crayon scene. You guys mentioned that there was actually a ethical conversation of your moral responsibility of showing this on TV and how to make sure that you weren't going to have kids cramming crayons up their nostrils, to be like Homer, which I don't know if that's something that is desirable or not. But do you remember how serious that was taken, or if that was a fairly light conversation?
What we were always afraid of, I didn't work on the show Alf in this particular year. I worked on it the following year. Alf did an episode where he took a mixer into a bathtub to create a jacuzzi and got electrocuted. And then very sadly, the week that followed, some kid did the same thing.
Oh no.
And they, so that's always in the back of my mind. Like, say anything you want, and be ridiculous. But if you're showing something that a kid could do, go under the sink and drink poison, you're going, probably you can do it in a funnier fashion that doesn't just give the very youngest the bad idea.
Yeah, very fair. I mean, that is something that, again, we can watch Homer and be like, obviously that's a bad idea, but kids are very much like monkey see, monkey do creatures a lot of times. So that's it's just, I thought it was interesting that was even a conversation that popped up, but I think that's
obviously, there have been so many conversations where, with broadcast standards, the premise is Homer is a jerk, or a bad guy or a stupid guy. And so when you show him doing something, kids know, oh, this is the guy doing something I shouldn't do. But even so, we try to have them do things that are more complicated, not something that just, you could simply replicate and get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Definitely something that a 3-year-old couldn't just easily get their hands on, basically. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Also during that scene, it was pointed out that the Simpsons are not always given nostrils, but I believe it was you that said they are given nostrils, watches, and wedding rings anytime it's needed or convenient for a joke.
Wedding rings are the funny one because, of course, we don't bother drawing them in 99.9% of the time, but you have seen it on Homer's middle finger, and if you see it, it's going to be part of the story.
Right, it's there for a reason, for sure. That brings us here to the third act, where we see at the very beginning another one of my favorite jokes. We see an angry mob at Moe's Taverns burning something, and Homer walks in. Effigy, eh? Yep, nothing burns like an effigy. Hey, that's me.
I think in a later show we had somebody going, effigies can be burned.
So very clearly everybody's against Homer, even the fire inspector, who when Homer complains, he's like, don't you tell me how to feel. And he throws a mug of beer, which causes it to explode in flames. So he must have had that beer spiked with something.
Yes.
I really appreciate when the crowd is like leaving and Homer's upset, he's like screaming at him like, how can you do this? I'm your better. You're better.
Well, the other thing is that we were paralleling Lisa's intelligence has not made her life easier, and Homer's intelligence here doesn't make his life easier. So it solidifies the bond between the two of them.
Right.
Right. And the person that he goes to for comfort in this situation is Lisa. He immediately goes to her to, confide this new feeling that he's experiencing. And Lisa has to point out that, like, yeah, Dad, often intelligence leads to a decrease in happiness. Look, I made a chart. I make a lot of graphs.
Yeah. No, you think about Galileo, how hard his life was because he was so smart. I mean, it definitely happens.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It even ruins the simple pleasures of life, like romantic comedies that you should just be able to turn your brain off and enjoy. But if you can't, it ruins the whole concept, because we're seeing what's essentially it looks like a parody of like The Runaway Bride or any movie that Julia Roberts is in like 1999, something like that. And basically Homer, while the rest of the theater is enjoying it whimsically and getting a good laugh, Homer is pointing out the issues with the movie, which again, in Simpsons fashion, turns into an angry mob situation, because that's how most situations
they're always mopping up. Also, this was, this episode aired in 2000, which was like the heyday of the romantic.
Oh no. Looks like I'm going to have to go back to the editing chair on this.
Giving you every sort of technical difficulty.
Oh, no, you're good, dude. No worries. All good. You were just about to talk about the heyday of romantic comedies, like with or like Julia Roberts specifically in romantic comedies, I believe.
Yeah, it was the 1990s. I mean, like Sleepless in Seattle was an enormous hit. And then you had Julia Roberts comedies, and you had Meg Ryan. I mean, and it's funny because, like, in terms of feature movies, I know we're in a pandemic, but even before, they'd almost vanished. It's a very strange thing where it was just like this popular thing. It doesn't seem like it's time sensitive, but I don't know. People didn't want romantic comedies in the 2010s.
Yeah. Have you watched that series on Netflix, The Movies That Made Us?
No.
It's a pretty good series. I enjoy it. It's a like hour-long mini documentary about like very popular films, and one of them was Pretty Woman. And I find a lot of times, like, the movies that I really love that they cover, like Home Alone, I enjoyed a lot. One of my favorite Christmas movies. But the movies that I don't know as well, like Pretty Woman, I often find myself enjoying the Movies That Made Us version or coverage of it.
Yes,
it goes so much into how that affected. Say again?
I would take that on Pretty Woman. I remember when it came out, I was like, what? This is why are they doing this?
I was pretty young. I was pretty young when Pretty Woman came out. So I do remember seeing it, but I don't really think I understood or appreciated the nuance of it. And getting to go back.
Nor did I, and I was older. So,
but it's a cool series. It definitely worth checking out. But specifically with the Julia Roberts tie-in for that one, that movie really put her on the map in a big way for that run of romantic comedies that happened.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Homer's jab about how he's literally telling the audience in the movie theater, she's going to end up marrying Richard Gere, and like it completely shocks the audience.
I thought he was going to marry the jerk guy.
And then it's typical in a movie theater audience, played by Bill Paxton, and you're like, no, it's Bill Pullman. Like, I so much connected with Homer in that scene.
That was a very 2000 joke. Yes.
I have to bring up, because we got to talk about this a little bit. You said that this scene was partially inspired by your actual theater visit to see the movie Beverly Hills Cop. Do you remember that as well?
Well, I remember. Yes, when I saw it, I didn't think it was funny, and I know I'm the only one. But there's this feeling.
Did you see the third one where he takes over a theme park? Because I feel like that's where the character really fully develops.
I just was sitting in a theater, just people enjoying themselves, laughing so hard, and me going, "What's wrong with me?" Just like, like in Ghostbusters, it was different because the lines that people laughed at were really funny. I just didn't think there were that many. But Beverly Hills Cop, I just never got it. I still don't.
Fair. I bet Eddie Murphy is going to put a banana in your tailpipe next time he sees you.
Well, he might, but he was just doing stuff where it's like, you're clearly just kind of like an actor doing shtick, and everyone's letting you get away with it as a cop. You know, it just I didn't buy the reality at all.
That's fair. Yeah, it's definitely not a realistic movie. No one.
Yeah.
And again, until you get to the third one where they take over a theme park, and then, I mean, that's reality if I've ever seen it.
Miles, putting bananas in tailpipes is really bad for the car. No.
I actually really like, oh man, I'm not going to think of his Judge Reinhold. Judge Reinhold is one of the cops in that movie. And he actually cracks me up more than Eddie Murphy does, being the straight man. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting that you pulled from real life to fill out this experience for Homr.
And it launched Bronson Pinchot as a star too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Going into the end act here, basically Homr is realizing that being smart is a blessing and a curse. He goes back to the lab where this was all done to him, and he asked if they can reverse it. And I love the scientist like, I'm sorry, we don't play God here.
That's exactly what you do. Look at that parrot.
And we see a parrot with octopus tentacles, like going, quack, I shouldn't be alive.
Only in animation.
They compromise and give Homr a card for a unlicensed surgeon. And this is where we again mentioned earlier, it's Mo Sizlak, and he literally just says on his card, yup, that's right, I'm a surgeon.
That's how we justified it. Yep. I think Hank didn't gave him a line once where he was holding Homr up for money. He goes, that's right, I robbed now. And he's like, what? The character can't just fold, and collapse into different things like that.
Hank was standing up for his man, huh?
Yeah. Well, although Mo has done a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about that a lot too. Mo is very he's the most likable sleazeball in probably all of cartoon because I mean, he smuggles or poaches pandas and whales, all sorts of just awful things. Yeah. We do see, however, he's got quite the surgery set up because he's literally got Homr strapped to the pool table. He's got a hammer, a chisel, and a crayon. And basically he's like, all right, tell me when you're stupid enough. And he just kind of starts hammering it in. And that's when we cut to Lisa, who is now drawing a picture of her father in a Renaissance
and there's a joke where he goes in too stupid, right? Yeah. It's like Homr says something about a sports team and Mo pulls it back a little.
Yeah. And then I think he decides to go back at the very end and go one more time. He's like, that couldn't hurt.
Yeah. The warranty. How can I lose?
Basically, we get to watch in real time as Lisa realizes what's happening before anybody. She knows as soon as that one crayon is missing that she knows where it's at. Her mom is even trying to encourage her, sweetheart, the missing crayon could be anywhere.
And Homr crashes through the window just then. Who wants lottery tickets?
Okay, it's in his brain.
Well, that was based on a math teacher I had in college that I went to dinner with once, and he told us, he goes, "There's no more regressive tax than the lottery. The people who are least able to afford it buy it, and it only pays 50%." And it always stuck with me. Just what a bad thing the lottery is.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's another one of those predatory things we talked about, like my credit card situation in college.
I thought you were going to say that your math teacher crashed through the window for a second.
Yeah,
I was excited.
No,
it was a good day in class.
He always had the brains.
This is where we get the real heartfelt moment of this episode, because Lisa is downright crushed by the fact that her dad made this decision. I mean, she is the one that benefited most from Homer's change in intelligence, and the fact that he was not able to handle it essentially really broke her heart. But then she finds the letter that he wrote to her explaining how impressed he is with her, that she's able to live that way, and how he just wasn't. And I have to say that while Lisa and Homr were having a moment, I was taking notes here, Al, and then you and I had a moment that I'm sure you're not aware about, because it was a moment between me and you in 2008. I was writing down about how much this gives me vibes of Mr. Bergstrom all the way back in season 2.
Yeah, I mean, that was a conscious echo of that. And, obviously the difference between doing Flowers for Algernon and doing our show is you want to have some sort of hopeful or, comic ending. And, I thought, the one way we could do that is to, it's another, sort of trope where somebody dies, but then they leave a message that you find out after they're dead, and it, brings somebody back in a sweet way. So that was the idea.
So as I'm taking that note, you started to talk about on the commentary that both this episode and the Mr. Bergstrom episode, both basically, I don't know if fail is the right word, but they didn't get the strong reaction that you expected from the animatic. Nope. They both were under delivering, but then after they both aired, they both went on to be considered 2 of the best episodes from the emotional standpoint, from that heartfelt connection that we feel to those characters. And I just thought that was really cool that connection existed. It made me feel special that I was writing that down as you started talking about it. So thank you for that. Great.
Thank you. Well, the Mr. Bergstrom one, especially when we got the color back, everyone in the room was just going, "Oh, that's sweet," but like nobody was going, "That's the best episode ever," which I just heard someone say again. And you cannot underestimate the power of a genuine emotion.
Very well said. Very well said. You also cannot underestimate the power of a sandwich to Homer, because another great ending joke here. While we're having this heartfelt moment, Lisa's reading her letter. She leaps up to hug her dad, who just got a sandwich, and his first response is hiding it from her. And then he's like, "Oh, you just want a hug." Hug.
Oh.
Beautiful. Again, you just said it yourself, and it was a perfect way to say it. You can't underestimate the value of like a true emotion like that. And very, very solid, strong episode. It makes sense to me why this is the one that you wanted to come and talk with us about. And I'm very grateful that you did, Al. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and for all your knowledge and enthusiasm about the show. I mean, it's very, very well much appreciated.
That's awesome. We really appreciate hearing that. Is there anything else about this episode, or about you probably talked enough about The Simpsons, but is there anything else that you want to share with us and our listeners while you're here today?
No, I think that's a lot of my voice for people to hear. So I'm happy to rest on that.
That's fair. No, again, this was a really good time, and we're grateful to have you. We do this every week. We're going through the entire, our goal is to go through them all. So as long as you keep making them, we'll keep reviewing them. The next episode that we're going to be getting to is going to be season 12, episode 10, Pokemon. And obviously, sir, open door. If there is ever an episode that you're like, I need to share some thoughts on that, I know a platform that would love to have you. We'll let all of our other Simpsons podcasts know. No, come back anytime, and we would love to have you, of course. But we very much appreciate your time here today and sharing all your thoughts.
My pleasure. And now to go back to trying to make more episodes.
You've got some more to do. And if you're ready to make the episode roasting podcast about The Simpsons, we're ready to roast ourselves. So just give us a call. We'll be there.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. I really
appreciate it. Thanks, Al. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Al.
Guys, that's going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly review show. What an episode. What a time to be alive. Thank you all so much, as usual, for tuning in. Richie, where can they follow us online?
They can follow you at Mr. Most Days Off, me at @TheWiz_Kid23, and our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
Make sure you come back again next week. As I just said, we will be reviewing the episode Pokemon.
As far as this podcast goes, we can't let this little doozy get out.
Well, that's airtight right there. And until next time, be cromulent to each other.